Dawn breaks across the towering, shadowed Hindu Kush mountains. The perilous vertical ecosystem slowly stirs to harsh, unforgiving life. A true master of altitude adaptation prepares to move. This is the undisputed domain of the Flare-horned Markhor. He must begin his perilous daily journey for survival. Navigating this crumbling shale requires absolute precision and focus. His unique hoof morphology grips the precarious rock perfectly. Even the smallest mountain residents observe his quiet passage. One misstep here means certain death below. The frigid, thin mountain air fills his deep lungs. Extreme topography dictates every single movement he makes today. He carefully descends toward the sparse, hidden feeding grounds. Scavengers constantly patrol these unforgiving, jagged heights above him. His ancient circadian rhythm guides him through the brutal cold. Every dark shadow holds potential danger this early. Predators roam these lower slopes, constantly seeking the unwary. He freezes, blending seamlessly into the muted earth tones. Patience is an absolutely necessary survival tactic here. The immediate threat passes, but he remains highly alert. A sudden, frantic flutter breaks the tense morning silence. Finding sparse alpine vegetation is an exhausting daily struggle. Every single mouthful provides vital energy for the climb. Other elite climbers share this desolate, rocky grazing patch. Limited resources are fiercely contested in this mountain ecology. The morning light finally breaches the incredibly thick overcast. The only path ahead steepens significantly toward the peaks. He must now ascend to find ultimate safety. The loose scree continuously slides beneath his immense weight. He briefly surveys the treacherous, distant valley floor below. The relentless, punishing upward journey truly begins right now. These highly exposed ridges offer critical visibility against unseen threats. A Himalayan griffon vulture circles the morning updrafts endlessly. His powerfully built legs propel him across deadly, open gaps. His cloven hooves act exactly like specialized, natural mountain crampons. These massive corkscrew horns demand incredible, unyielding neck strength. The ultimate apex predator silently, patiently observes him from afar. He suddenly catches a dangerously unfamiliar scent on the wind. The deadly ghost of the mountains is somewhere nearby. There is absolutely nowhere to hide on these sheer walls. He instantly accelerates, pushing dangerously higher into the jagged rocks. Brutal gravity is his constant, unforgiving companion on this ascent. Dislodged, shattered stones plummet thousands of terrifying feet below. A massive Himalayan brown bear forages aggressively far below him. The intense vertical exertion takes a severely heavy physical toll. He must maintain his desperate momentum to survive this climb. This brutal terrain offers absolutely no respite or flat ground. Even eagles respect the sheer resilience of this incredible climber. He takes a brief, desperately much-needed moment of quiet rest. Delicate life clings fiercely to these harsh, endlessly windy peaks. The hardest part of this brutal day still approaches fast. The final barrier to the high plateau is the steepest yet. He calls upon every remaining ounce of energy for this push. Success comes with the price of absolute physical exhaustion. A scavenging red fox quickly yields to the massive, exhausted climber. He has finally secured a rare plateau of alpine vegetation. This vast, open space offers food, but leaves him totally exposed. He ravenously consumes the tough, thorny scrub to replenish lost calories. Even while eating, his hyper-vigilant eyes constantly scan the horizon. Small predators like the yellow-throated marten pose absolutely zero threat today. The morning concludes. The oppressive, draining midday heat now approaches rapidly. Midday in the Hindu Kush mountains brings a crushing, exhausting stillness. The soaring temperatures strip away his morning energy almost instantly. He must conserve precious water by minimizing all unnecessary physical movement. Even the stealthy Himalayan lynx succumbs entirely to the midday exhaustion. Finding shelter from the oppressive glare becomes his only immediate priority. The deep rock overhang provides a critical, cooling midday sanctuary. The crushing heat demands a massive physiological toll on his body. He vigorously sheds loose winter fur against the sharp, cooling stone. An uneasy truce exists here. The heat suppresses all hunting instincts. He finally surrenders to gravity, resting his incredibly massive frame entirely. The mountain holds its collective breath during these punishing midday hours. His heavy corkscrew horns find temporary rest on the cooling earth. The microfauna alone remain active in this intense, stifling heat. Digestion and recovery must happen simultaneously during this vital midday rest. The relentless elements constantly barrage the shelter from the outside world. Absolute stillness completely paralyzes the entire mountain during these brutal hours. The apex predator is currently bound by the exact same lethargy. subconscious survival instincts never truly shut off in this dangerous environment. A brief moment of wakefulness before slipping back into necessary slumber. The relentless sun continues its slow arc across the overcast sky. The worst of the punishing midday heat begins to slowly break. He instantly checks the stale air for any approaching predator signs. A violent shake clears the suffocating dust from his incredibly thick coat. Other hidden residents wait patiently for the cooler evening air. He cautiously approaches the glaring light, preparing to resume the journey. A newly rising, cooler afternoon wind signals it is time to move. He fiercely asserts his absolute dominance over this specific, vital resting ground. He sharpens his massive corkscrewed horns, leaving a stark visual warning. Lesser rivals wisely choose to avoid his formidable, highly aggressive path. Fully rested, he must now begin the perilous descent toward twilight. He carefully calculates every single step of this treacherous, impending descent. Gravity constantly threatens to pull his massive bulk into the abyss. The afternoon shadows encourage predators to resume their relentless, deadly stalking. Crumbling shale explodes violently under the immense pressure of his landing. This vertical ecosystem demands flawless execution of every single step. He eagerly snatches any meager nutrients growing directly on the stone. His split hooves act as independent, incredibly strong mountain anchors. While others scramble recklessly, he maintains his slow, highly disciplined pace. Blind corners on these cliffs hide incredibly dangerous, unseen threats. The shifting afternoon shadows awaken the ultimate apex predator. He senses a distinct, terrifying shift in the mountain ecology. The faintest sound of shifting rocks confirms his worst fear. Even the ambient wildlife reacts to the stalking snow leopard. He trades silence for raw speed, sliding dangerously down the scree. This terrifying choke point offers absolutely no alternate route forward. Perfect balance is heavily dictated by his incredible altitude adaptation. The crumbling shale bridge threatens to instantly collapse beneath him. He aggressively lunges forward, finally securing solid, unyielding rock again. He fiercely guards his dangerous rear flank, knowing he is hunted. The ghost of the mountains closes the massive gap entirely, silently. Extreme topography becomes his only desperate shield against the apex predator. A terrifying roar echoes powerfully up the dark, enclosing stone chimney. Absolute, unfiltered panic fully takes over his incredibly exhausted body. He furiously pushes toward the only terrain where predators strictly cannot follow. He chooses the absolute deadliest, most unstable crumbling shale available. Only the specific hoof morphology of the Flare-horned Markhor survives this. This brutal evasion pushes his immense heart to its absolute breaking point. The immediate threat vanishes, replaced only by overwhelming, crushing fatigue. Twilight finally begins to paint the brutal Hindu Kush mountains. The cooling evening air brings out the opportunistic twilight scavengers. He must reach his completely inaccessible sleeping ledge before absolute darkness. The ultimate challenge of the day lies directly ahead in the shadows. To survive the freezing night, he must climb straight up again. This terrifyingly smooth rock face defies all logical mountain ecology. Every single strained muscle works furiously against the brutal, unforgiving gravity. Patient scavengers relentlessly circle, waiting for one single fatal misstep. His massive horns ingeniously double as specialized climbing tools when necessary. He reaches a ledge barely wide enough to hold his hooves. This heart-stopping traverse represents the pinnacle of altitude adaptation. One single distraction here instantly guarantees a completely fatal plunge. The incredibly extreme topography forces all life onto these microscopic pathways. Disaster strikes as the treacherous, unstable rock simply gives way. Adrenaline alone powers his incredibly massive body back to safety. The apex predator is finally halted by this absolutely impossible terrain. He has successfully outmaneuvered the deadly ghost of the mountains. The plunging twilight temperatures threaten to freeze him completely solid. He summons the absolute last remnants of his formidable strength. The final spire stands totally isolated against the darkening sky. He breaches the absolute highest, most utterly inaccessible rocky ledge. He has safely reached his ultimate, impenetrable twilight sanctuary. His brutal daily battle with gravity is finally, completely over. Exhaustion immediately pulls him deeply into necessary, restorative sleep. Above the deadly chaos below, absolute peace finally reigns supreme. The entire vertical ecosystem shuts down to survive the freezing darkness. These majestic corkscrew horns are the ultimate symbol of mountain survival. Tomorrow, this brutal, incredible journey begins all over again. He remains the undisputed king